Do you find that there's any big commonalities or common threads of being a beginner writer where you think you've got a great story, maybe you've got a great idea, assuming that even if your writing itself is mediocre, something can be improved on? Is there still something that you think, as far as a construct of a story, that a lot of people get wrong?
I think I this is gonna sound weird, but mechanics is important. The way you tell the story and the way you write the story as you go through. And when I was young, when I was starting, I would do a revision of my story, and those first times it was like, all right, so I've got to remove the word that, because 90% of the time that is extraneous. It doesn't mean anything. He said that it was cold. Well, why doesn't he just say it was cold?
Yeah.
Or better yet, why not just he said it's cold? Or better yet, why not just shiver or something?
Yeah.
You know, there's better ways of doing certain things, and some of it is, for me, a little bit about the musicality of it, the way that it sounds and the way that it works. And the mechanics play directly into that. And I think a lot of younger writers, and I don't mean this as a generalization, I don't mean younger people who are writing, but people who are beginning to write, no matter what age you are, haven't mastered the mechanics yet. They're not entirely familiar with how to say what it is that they want to say in the clearest and most concise ways. Clear, concise, and simple was the way that I would describe it. And so they sometimes get in their own ways with some of that. I've done some editing work for a variety of people, and a lot of times the edits are simple edits. It's, remove the word that, remove the word even, remove the word suddenly. Like suddenly nothing. Suddenly means it already is not sudden because I had to get through that word.
Good point.
Yeah, there's ways of making it seem sudden without having to say suddenly. If you have to say it, you haven't done it right. And that's a matter that I don't think that that's a problem. I don't think it's a problem that you do that at the beginning, because everybody has to start and get through that. I know I did. I'm sure in my first stories, new sections were begun with the word meanwhile, or, on the other side of town. You don't need to do that. But it's a matter of knowing how to do that instead, and to know that that is, something that needs to be done. After the first rounds of revisions, and when I finally stopped using that in that way, then I found there were other things that I was doing consistently that needed to be changed. And then when I fixed that, there were other things. There's always something else. There's still things today. You're always going to have those words that you fall on as a crutch to get through. It's kind of like when you say so or or when you talk.
Those fillers.
Those fillers filter into the writing in different ways. So very becomes a filler word, really becomes a filler word, that became a filler word. When you get through those, when you start working through those, then you find that the stories become more tightly written. And when you can tell your story more tightly, then even an idea that's not wholly original can be better told and can become interesting, because a lot of ideas have already been done. It's how are you combining that with other ideas, and how are you telling the story? Because the telling of the story is what, to me, makes it interesting, makes it engaging. So that I think the big thing with beginning writers at the earliest steps of their career is just that they need to write it right through the crap to get to that part of it. Because everybody's got it. I heard, everybody has to write 1 million words of crap before they can write something good.
That makes sense.
I've heard that. I've heard things like you have to study for 10,000 hours or practice for 10,000 hours before you can be a master at something.
Yeah.
It's the same thing and the same theory. I don't know that the 1 million words is a hard and fast cutoff.
Sure.
But, I was definitely thrilled when I counted the words in Inkstained, and that by itself was over 1 million words.
Holy shit! It's a lot of stains.
Yes, and I had been writing.
Wow.
I had been writing novels for decades before I did that.
Yeah.
good, bad, or ugly, whether it worked or not. The only kind of revisions I was doing was grammar and clarity, making sure it's saying what I didn't change any stories. I didn't revise anything major. All I did was make sure that it was clear and included everything. And I think that might be why I stopped where I did, because I think there's a story in the next month that I question. I would not write that story today. And although I wrote it in 2015, which is not that long ago, maybe I feel differently or I look at it differently than I did then. I don't even remember. I'm trying to remember how I felt. I don't even remember the specifics of the story or what it was that gives me pause. But there's something in the next volume that I'm not sure I want to share with the world.
Thanks so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video as much as I hope you did, please consider hitting the like button so that this could reach out to more people like yourselves. Really appreciate that. And if you want to keep in touch with the channel, please also consider subscribing and hitting that notification button. Thanks so much. We'll see you on the next one. And while you're waiting for the next one, why not check out this video? Because that's the one that YouTube thinks that you're going to like next. Have a great day. Stay dark, stay well, stay hungry.